Becoming You show with me, your host, Leah Rowling. Do you believe you are capable of choosing your future? Sometimes it takes just one person to believe in you, for you to believe in yourself. If you find yourself continuing to say, someday I will take better care of myself, only to continue living the same day over and over and over again, then you, my friend, are in the right place. I am your biggest cheerleader, inspiring you to become you on purpose and with intention. Are you ready to create a life you love? I'm excited to share with you some big ideas that you can use today to inspire, impact, and influence your life and everyone in it. The Becoming You show starts now. Hello, my friends. How are you? How was your week? I wasn't going to offer this up, but I am, because I feel like there's a lot of angst and there's a lot of frustration right now, and people are overwhelmed. And I think, at least for me, where I live in Iowa, the winter's been long, and there's a little hope with the new season. But I think we've lost our sense of oneness and connection with others. And I believe that a lot of us are making some assumptions that the world is bad, people are bad. And I wanted just to offer this up because I just got off a coaching call, and I was sharing with my client that I wouldn't be able to make our normal Friday coaching call because I was doing a fundraiser for a girlfriend of mine who has been diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, not recently diagnosed, but has struggled and fought hard. It is a diagnosis that currently there is no save for. It's fatal, and all of the money goes to early detection of it. And I was just in awe of his generosity and love, because he's like, let me know how I can contribute. Let me know how. He doesn't know this person. He doesn't know my friend. And so I just wanted to start my podcast with like a public service announcement that there are amazing, amazing people that are generous and that are compassionate and that care, and that love is not lost. And I just want to remind you to look for that in people, because it's there. So I digress, but we're coming back to the show. I really want to know how your week was. How did you make the progress that you wanted in your life? Did you feel like you showed up ready to love and serve and lead? And if not, what got in the way? Where were you misaligned? What happened where you wanted to show up this way, and yet that way didn't seem available as a choice to choose from? And can you recognize the incongruency as an opportunity to explore what it is that you could learn about yourself? Or rather, is it possible, as it was for me in my journey, that is something that you may want to unlearn about yourself? And that is kind of what I wanted to talk with you about today. The major shifts in my personal development journey, interesting enough, the shifts were made possible not by any new revelation I made about myself, rather states of being that I had to unlearn. And in order for me to get to that next level, it wasn't just enough to just learn new ideas. The shift happened when I integrated these new ideas and beliefs and behaviors into my thinking and feeling state of being. And I truly believe that in order to discover our most authentic self, we need to unlearn, unbecome who we have been in order to reveal the best of who it is that we are. So I know most of my podcasts talk about becoming into the best of who we are through transformational gateways: self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-love, self-transformation, self-mastery. But sometimes an unlearning, an unbecoming is necessary to access that next level for ourselves. So I think before we get into the unlearning part of the program, I wanted to just give you some context on why this unbecoming is important. First, nothing is wrong with you. We are not unbecoming or unlearning in order to fix our brokenness. You don't need fixed. That's first. Secondly, most of who we are at this very moment in time was not of our design. It was not of our choosing. Most of who we are right now is based on unconscious programming, thoughts, feelings, behaviors that were not of our creation. Most of us think, most of what we think about, right, has been handed to us. It's either been recycled, inherited, borrowed from the people in our life, our parents, our caretakers, our teachers, our coaches. And if we want to shift into that next level for ourselves, it starts with shifting our thought patterns. And in order to do that, we have to be aware of what they are and decide on purpose what we want them to be. Secondly, the way we feel by way of our thoughts is also an unconscious sequence of think, feel, behave, memorized models that feel really true, necessary, and important, but block the truth of who you are. You are not everyone else's thoughts. You're not. And yet, if we don't unlearn the thoughts that we were handed and relearn new thoughts, it is next to impossible to be the most unique expression of yourself, i.e., like your authentic self. So this thinking, feeling state of being has been conditioned since we took our very first breath. All of the conditioning was role modeled. How our parents, caretakers, coaches handled crisis, what they thought about money, death, politics, religion, how they loved or didn't love. The essence of their entire existence was available for us to choose and mirror or choose and deny. And since we are mirror-wired humans, most of us mirrored what we had been taught, what we learned, and all of it's valid and probably even required in order for us to survive our life. Yet so many people are still surviving their life because they are still living in these same conditioned patterns that they believe are just who they are, without questioning if who they are is really who they are. And more, if who they are is who they want to be. So hopefully that provides some context around the work that we're going to do today. So one of the first things, I'm going to share with you a couple of things as much time as I have. I'm going to share a couple of the things that I felt were really important and necessary to unlearn in my journey. And for me, one of the first things I had to unlearn is ignoring my own boundaries to please other people. Now, please know that this is not a perfect practice, or at least for me, it isn't. With every opportunity to say yes to something, I defend by my boundaries. Okay. And so I want to ask you a few questions. When you think, or when somebody asks you to do something, I want you to ask of yourself, is this something that I genuinely want to do? AKA, am I saying yes to this against my will? Now, I'm not suggesting that there are not times you're going to say yes because you want to be of service and you are prepared to get your head and your heart in the game so that you can do so with a good attitude. Because if not, we do a lot of yesing, lie about what is being asked, and then silently resent ourselves and them for it. So for me, I had to learn to set up some solid boundaries for myself, rules, if you will. So for me, rule number 1 was no lying, no pretending. Rule number 2 was if I couldn't have a good attitude about it, it was just a no for me. And rule number 3 is if it doesn't align with my clarity words, it's a no, which is why it's really important to know what those are. And it's one of the habits that I teach in my high performance program. So I know some of you listening are going to be doing that work with me next month. And if you didn't get in this one, get on the wait list for the next one. This work is probably the most transformational work that I've done in my 3 decades of doing this work. So holding my boundaries and refusing to people please, lie, was a huge unlearning for me. I would over yes to everything in hopes that people would be pleased by me. I think for me, it was more important that other people liked me than if I did. Could anybody relate to this? So here is what I know about people pleasing. And I know for sure you've heard me share some of these thoughts before, but when we people please, it's a lose-lose. We think it's kind, we think it's generous, but it isn't. It's lying to them so that they are liked and are pleased by someone that someone is just not us. It's a pretend version of us. And it's lying to ourselves about someone that you think you should be in hopes that people will like you. And again, we forget, right? And we convince ourselves that they like us, but they don't like us. They like a pretend version of us. And lastly, I'm all for serving. I'm all for doing things that I don't necessarily love doing. But I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to be upset and bitter with them for asking and then judge and shame and blame myself for doing the very thing. I'm just going to learn to tell the truth. And if I can't shift my head into a right attitude about it, it's just got to be a no for me. Okay. So that's the first thing that I had to unlearn. The second unbecoming, the second unlearning for me, and again, these are in no particular order. And again, I'm still a work in progress on all of these things and will forever be, is to make myself small to fit into social situations. What this looked like for me is when there was an opportunity to network, to connect, to make introductions in a larger room, I would either distract myself with my phone or find one other person to talk to, or show up just in time to get my seat, leaving no time to meet anyone new. Now, most people think that I'm this huge extrovert, and I am. And I'm also not. When I'm in flow, when I'm in alignment, I am the energy of an extrovert. And when I'm not, I confine myself. And I would confine myself with stories like this. What would I say? I don't do small talk. And it isn't that what that is. If I talk about something other than the weather and the economy, what would people think? If I actually got curious about what they thought and how they felt and what they dreamed about and what kept them up at night, they might probably think that I lost my mind. Meaning, I cared more about what they thought of me than allowing me to be me. And there is, as you'll see, a very consistent theme in all of these unlearnings, these unbecomings. What I realized is that I needed to unbecome to become. I needed to unlearn all the ways that diminish the very essence of who I was, to keep peace, to be liked, to not rock the boat, to not make it uncomfortable for anyone else. I got so used to pretending who I was that I had no idea who I actually was. I had to learn the pretend version of me to step into the real version of me. Does that make sense? And here's one of my favorites, and probably one of the ones that I've made the most progress on. Pretending like I'm fine instead of bothering people with my existence. This one was super ingrained in me ever since I was a little girl. You've probably heard my story about my brother. He was diagnosed with spinal meningitis, and at 18 months, and he required a ton of care and attention. My mom was an only parent that worked full time and had 2 other kids, myself and my sister and my brother, right, to raise. And I still honestly don't know how she did it, but I never really wanted to bother her with anything that was going on with me. I mean, good Lord, she had enough on her plate. So I got good. I mean, really good at being fine. and figuring it out on my own. I mean, nothing that I was going through ever was more important, not by a landslide, to what my brother was going through. So I find my existence away. I essentially was the quote unquote, I was the easy one, the one that didn't create any problems, that didn't have any problems, as if I wasn't even there. And so I wasn't. And if you've been listening to me a while, you also know that I grew up thinking that if I was just smarter, if I was just more athletic, more kind, more fill in the blank, that my dad would want to be my dad and that he would come back. And so I had to unlearn what I had memorized about my existence, which was twofold. First, that my self-worth was dependent on my accomplishments and what I did or didn't do. And secondly, that my self-worth was dependent on other people, the other people that deemed you worthy and lovable and enough. And that shift was transformational in my journey. I was exhausted in all of the doing, and it never made me feel enough. It never made me feel worthy. It just made me feel more hopeless, because what else could I possibly do? What else could I possibly achieve in my life that would deem me worthy so that I could have permission to actually live it all out? And when I realized that I was the one denying me of my worth, my love, my mattering, it changed everything. When I realized that I did not need to do anymore, I was just free to be me. And that really was my freedom breakthrough, not needing permission from other people to live my life, rather just to deciding to choose it for myself on purpose. And I didn't have to find a way in my life. I could just suggest to other people that I wasn't okay. And then they could decide whether or not it mattered to them or not. But I was done not mattering for myself. The next unlearning, I think, that is so hard for many of us, and it's probably the one of social standards, right? Social standards surrounding the way our life should have been and who we should be in it. When you think back on your life, do you think that it should have been different in some ways? Maybe you think that, you should have grown up with better parents, or at least two of them. Maybe you think you should have had more friends, maybe not be bullied, maybe more popular, maybe more athletic, more smart. Maybe you thought you should have been able to get pregnant with more ease, with less difficulty. Maybe you thought you should have only been married one time. Maybe you wish you were blonde or shorter with straight hair instead of being a tall and curly brunette. Whatever you think when it comes to societal norms and standards, I need you to know, like really know, they're just thoughts. Thoughts that you can for sure keep. But if they have you in judgment of your life and of yourself, they might be norms that you question. Like, what is normal anyway? I want you to question that for yourself. And what does it matter? Even if there is a norm, a standard, for me, it was being okay that I would most likely be forever tall, hovering over everyone, feeling like I take up too much space. I remember whenever I was in pictures, I would kind of squat down and like hunch over. And my mom would always say, Leah, stand up straight. And I would worry that in order, right, to get me in the picture, that they might not get someone else. And I didn't want that on my I did not want that on my conscience. Unlearning what I thought to be true allowed me to realize that we all have so much more in common, and we are way more similar than we are different. And the standards that I have, I actually want to have for myself. I actually want to like for myself. So I'll go a little quicker on these next few that I want to kind of offer up as an invitation, if you will, to unlearn, to unbecome. How many times do you find yourself wanting to speak up, contradict, or at minimum, voice your belief about something, but you don't? You don't. You don't to avoid conflict, to avoid what could possibly be a difficult conversation. I know for most of us, the biggest fear, right? Not because I say so, but because research suggests it, is public speaking. And I'm not even necessarily suggesting public speaking as in standing on a stage and talking with 4, 5, 10,000 people. I just mean public speaking, meaning talking to another human, right? I think we fear it. I think we fear it because we don't want to speak up. We don't want to put ourselves into those difficult conversations because we've been conditioned to bite our tongue, to keep the peace. We've been conditioned to avoid conflict, to minimize and silence our voice so as not to be off-putting. I can't even tell you the amount of times that I've done so with peace in mind. And I know how different I feel when I actually speak my truth. When I do, I feel proud of myself. And when I don't, I feel disappointed in myself. And if I'm not careful, the disappointment will turn into self-blame and shame and judgment. Learning and practicing saying what you think and how you feel, even if it's not popular, even when people might not agree, is essential to honoring who it is that you are. Here's another one that I had to learn. I had to learn how to celebrate my accomplishments. Yes, like stop for a hot second to be genuinely proud of ourselves instead of racing to that next thing to check off. I ask my clients at the start of every single call, what are the wins you had this week? And I don't do this to pass time. I do this because I want them to integrate the wins into their identity. Because when we don't do that, we forget that we are actually winning. And when we fail to acknowledge as such, what's the point of the goal? What's the point to life? I think for so many of us, we are lacking self-discipline because we aren't celebrating the times that we've been disciplined. So what would the point be? Right? When you woke up this morning and you did that thing that you knew you wanted to do, you woke up, you worked out, you fixed your meals for the day because that's what you wanted to be disciplined in. You went to your computer and you didn't check the agenda of everyone else, but rather you took that time to write for your book, and you did that, and you did not acknowledge that as a win. And so tomorrow comes. How motivated are you really to get up and do that again? To get up and to do that workout and to plan your meals and to write. I think we lack self-discipline because we forget to acknowledge the discipline that we had. We forget to acknowledge the best of who we are. When we win every single day, if you woke up with breath this morning, you're winning. If you're listening to this podcast, you are winning because you are choosing to listen to something that will invite you to explore the best of yourself. And not everyone is doing this, but you are. You are doing this work. So let's celebrate you right now. So lots of high fives. Can you do that for yourself? I have been researching and learning for decades the layers and the complexity of personal development, behavior change, neuroscience, quantum science. And I would argue that what I have been able to unlearn about myself is more transformational than anything that I've learned. You can learn, right? You can't learn what you think you know. And I think for so many of us, these are things that we just think are true, that we've just been conditioned to do, or we just haven't navigated a different way of being. This unlearning is the work. And if you want any help with it, please either get on the wait list for either my clutter-free program that's coming up. We've got a May 19th webinar, or get on the wait list for the next launch of the high performing program. We talk not just about the habits that we want to create for ourselves, but we also talk about the habits, these unconditioned, these preconditioned programs that we need to unlearn. So we have to unhabitize, if that's even a word, what we have been doing. So I want to invite you to do that work with me here when it's the right time for you. But I appreciate you. I honor you for being here with me today. And I will see you next week. Talk to you soon, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Becoming You show with me, your host, Leah Rolling, where I share big ideas to inspire, impact, and influence your life. Tune in every Friday at 11 Central on transformationtalkradio.com for your morning cup of coffee, the hug you never want to end, and that inspirational message that you felt was written just for you. Each show is inspiring you to become you with purpose and intention. For more information or to connect with me, visit www.leahrolling.com.